Alright, I'm going to show you the process of how I make my own homemade fish fertilizer. Technically inaccurate to call it fish emulsion. Fish emulsion's heated. This is not heated, so this is technically fish hydrolysate. So this is the one batch I've already made. It separates pretty quickly, so I'm going to give it a stir and show you what it looks like. This one is maybe about 2 months old now. This one here is just, it's a whole lingcod carcass and 2 or 3 small rockfish that I just didn't get around to eating. And I put them in there mostly full, and it's basically all liquid now. I strained out some small pieces, but the whole entire lingcod head disappeared in there. So that's why I have high hopes about this. I went salmon fishing yesterday, and I got local king salmon, local wild king salmon. One of the, oh, it must be this one. This is the bigger one. That was a 20 pounder. This one's about a 13 pounder. So just in this bucket, I have 8 pounds of salmon guts. Let me show you what else I'm going to do with this one. Tyson, leave it. Yappers. Alright. So into that, I'm going to put some molasses, because really what's going on here is kind of like a lacto fermentation. The full one, not the full one, the fully composted one smells like I've been fermenting something. It doesn't really smell like rotten flesh. It smells like a overripe sauerkraut type of a thing. Either way, it's microorganisms, and I want to feed those microorganisms, at least initially, with unsulfured molasses. So I'm going to put kind of a lot, maybe about half of what I still have in here, maybe about a cup. A little bit more maybe. All right. Scooch puppy. Now I'm just going to cover with water. This one already looks and smells gross because it was in a plastic bag out on my porch for 24 hours, fermenting. Now, with the last batch I did, I just put a solid lid on it, and I burped it every couple of days just by lifting it up to let the gases out. But I have an extra piece of screen. You see that? So I'm going to use the screen this time. I don't see why it should be any different. I can't imagine flies getting underneath this size of a screen. Scooch buddy. My dog is obsessed with the smell, so he's always front and center when I'm using the fish fertilizer. I'm just going to tape it to the bucket. Alright, that's all there is to it. It's taped up. It can breathe, so bacteria and fungus can get in there to help the decomposition, but flies hopefully can't. Looks pretty cool. So this is going to take about 4 weeks to get where I want it to. Maybe a little bit more because I left those heads in their hole. It's going to stink for a few weeks, but by the time it's at this point, it really doesn't have an offending smell. It does smell funky, but not like decomposition, you know, death funky. But the prices of fish fertilizer at the grocery store, at the gardening centers, it's totally worth it, especially if you catch your own fish. So this way, it's dope because I get high quality fish fertilizer, plus I'm using 100% of the fish I caught yesterday. I caught 2 king salmon yesterday. We're gonna eat the meat like normal fillets, like normal people, but then the carcass, instead of just getting tossed in the garbage, it's going to be used for fish fertilizer. Alright, I will probably give you an update as this ferments. I'll tell you what, it stinks. It's decomposing, it's definitely rotting and breaking down. That's what we want it to do. And it's definitely in the stinky stage right now. It will not stay this stinky for the entire time. When the stink goes away, you know you're done. It's also floating, which is kind of gross. but I can also tell there's no bugs in there, so that's also kind of good, right? I'll give you maybe weekly updates or something. All right, it's the end of July. It's been a few weeks. I actually don't even remember how long. It's not ready yet, but learning tool. Look at what a critter got in there overnight. They didn't take much or spill it at least. This 5-gallon bucket's just sitting out here in my backyard. So I got lucky, but it's a learning lesson. Something got in there. It's not festered with flies, so I got real lucky. So I got a lid. So learning lesson, I'm not gonna use straight mesh anymore. I'm gonna use a lid. Since I was replacing the lid, I grabbed a stick to give it a stir, and man, there's not much in there. So today's July 27th. It's been about maybe 3 weeks. I'll look it up. I'll make a note of it. About 3 weeks. Well, look at that. There was 2 big salmon carcasses in there, and they didn't go through that little hole that the critter tore overnight. Still a little stinky, but not as bad as you would think. I can't believe how far down it's already broken. And you can tell it's salmon. It actually does smell like, it still smells like rotting fish a little bit. It's not fully there, but it kind of smells like salmon. What is that, an operculum? Is that part of the gill plate? That's pretty dope. Cool. All right, you guys, it's been a month. It's been about 4.5 weeks now since this fermented fish fertilizer has been going. Today is August 7th. I caught the fish on July 7th and made it on July 8th. So it's been a month, 4 weeks, 4.5 weeks. Woo! Right, that looks funky, don't it? Remember what it looked like just a few weeks ago? Well, to start, it was 2 whole carcasses. Hey, and then it got brown and funny colored with the screen on there and gross, but this is actually pretty consistent. And I didn't come in here and blend this. This looks good. It does not stink. Well, it stinks, but it doesn't smell like rotting, decomposing fish. There are gonna be some chunks in there. See, look, that's about all there is. Out of the whole spine, out of all those are just some pin bones. Looks like a collarbone. A few vertebrae in there. Actually, a lot of vertebrae, I guess. But think about how big those skulls were, those salmon skulls. Those are totally gone. This is ready. I'm gonna strain this and use it. Okay, I've got this strainer that I've made out of hardware cloth, like 1/2-inch hardware cloth. What I'm gonna do is pour this one into this one. Carefully. Now that is impressive. Might be hard to tell on video, but there is not much here. There is not much solids left. Out of those 2 big carcasses, this is all that didn't get liquefied, fermented. And I'm still going to use this. I will either bury that in one of my beds or I'll put it into my compost bin. I'm not just going to throw that away. Alright, now how do I use this? It's highly concentrated right now, so it's just fish, molasses, and water when I started it a month ago. From here, I'm going to use, I guess it's up to you, but I like using between 1 and 2 tablespoons of concentrate per gallon. This is not quite 3.5 gallons, so that would be 2, 4, 6, 7 tablespoons if I'm doing 2 tablespoons per gallon. So there are 16 tablespoons in a cup. This here is a 1/2 cup, so this here should be good for 8 Oh, so this is 8 tablespoons, right? So I want most of this filled. And this is kind of my gross one that I've been using. This one stays in the garden. This is the one I used in my other batches. And to be honest, I go over. Normally, I'll fill this whole thing up for my 3.5 gallon watering cup bin. So let's just do it exactly like that. I want to mix this up a little bit more so it's homogeneous. Whole scoop right into there. Then I'm just going to grab my hose. That's all there's to it. And then you would just water this as you would normally water anything in your garden. Now this is going to have a lot of nitrogen in it, but it's also going to have a lot of potassium and phosphorus because there was bones and minerals and all sorts of stuff. So I will add this type of fertilizer to my plants at any stage, whether they're vegetative, flowering, or fruiting. I'll add it all to them. Hey Tyson, leave the cup alone. He's gonna chew up my measuring cup. But yeah, you don't need to see me actually pour it onto plants, but that's all there is to it. It's a pretty fun way of using 100% of the products we harvest from the ocean or from nature. Keep it all in your garden, and tell you what, my garden loves it. Right here, might as well just show you some of it. I'm just gonna water we're underneath my trellis right now. So down here's my squash and a couple tomatoes. These are heavy feeders. I'll take, look at them, I don't know, probably most of this for these 3 plants because they're such huge, heavy feeders. These 2 tomatoes and this 1 squash are each over 6 feet, probably close to 8 feet, with lots of fruit on all of them. That's all there is to it. Homemade fish fertilizer. Keep doing that till your garden's beautiful.